Welcome, everyone, to the Brand Fortress HQ podcast. I'm your host, John Stojan. Today, I have my two co-hosts, Matt Atkins and Mike Kaufman, with me. And our guest today is Dr. Travis Zigler. Dr. Zigler is a recovering optometrist transformed into e-commerce as an entrepreneur with his wife, Jenna. They founded and later sold iLove, and that led into the establishment of Profitable Pineapple Ads Agency. And then they developed Profitable Pineapple Express inventory management system, where they offer a 14-day free trial. And then Travis also offers a free Amazon PPC masterclass. So lots of different things involved at Amazon. In addition to that, he also, all those profits from those ventures go into his foundation called the I Believe Foundation, where their mission is focused on clarity aimed at reducing blindness caused by the lack of glasses that affects over 1 billion people worldwide. Travis, welcome to the podcast.
John, Mike, and Matt, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Good to have you.
So obviously you got your hands in a lot of different things and experience with a lot of different things. So folks that, maybe aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'll tell my 40 years on this earth in 5 minutes or less. So let's go here. I became an optometrist, thought I'd do that my whole life, actually worked for my uncle right when I graduated, and something just felt off working for someone else. And anybody that's an entrepreneur knows that itch when you're working for someone else. You can't be a W-2. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work mentally. So I did the 3 things you're not supposed to do. I quit my job with my uncle. I moved across the country from Ohio to South Carolina, and I started 2 businesses of my own, 2 practices. So my wife and I had a practice each, and I went from seeing 6 patients at my uncle's office to seeing 1 patient at my new office because it was a brand new practice. My uncle's practice was from 1950, so it's been around forever. And so we had a lot more patients. Got bored, and a course came across my inbox called Amazing Selling Machine back in 2015. I took that course, taught me how to sell on Amazon, started out as a sunglass company. We actually built the sunglass company up from 0 to $3 million in about 2.5 years. And I saw the writing on the wall of everybody being taught to sell plastic widgets from China. And it was only a matter of time before competition comes in and steals our lunch. So I pivoted into creating a brand, and we released Hydrate, the brand. Our first brand was called iLove, and like an eyeball. And Hydrate was our second one. So Hydrate was H-E-Y-E, like an eye, Hydrate. And that became a dry eye company. So we developed products around dry eye for that company, but we started serving an audience. We started serving a person that had dry eye. And what we did is we were seeing so much dry eye in our practice. We were essentially a dry eye practice. And I looked up at my shelf one day and I said, I want to come out with every product that's on that shelf that we're selling for dry eye. And it started out with one of the products. I was selling about 10 of these products a day in my office. And one of my customers or my patients came up to me and they're just like, hey, they just changed the price of this from $30 a month to $300 a month. Could you figure out how to manufacture this? So that was like, sure, I'll figure that out. And contacted manufacturers, found one. We were in private label production within 6 days of that conversation. They were selling it for $300 a month. We came out with it for $15 a month. That's how cheap it was to make this product. And they were just exploiting it big time because they were prescription medication. So that was our first product, and that became our hero product. We got that up to about 200 sales a day, and we built our audience to about 200,000 people over the course of the 4 years of that dry eye brand. And the main thing that we were serving was we were teaching people how to heal their dry eye naturally through functional medicine, through diet, through drinking more water, stressing less, sleeping better. And then our products are over here on the side that are more organic and healthier for you than prescription medications. And so we focused on serving the person, and we grew that company. In our best month, we did about $500,000 on Amazon and Shopify. And then that's when we sold the company as well. So we ended up selling that in 2021. In 2021, I ended up staying on with the company for 2 years as president, and I led them for ended up being about 18 months. We still have equity in the brand, but we split ways after about 18 months. They took it over. They're now running it, and we're still equity owners. So we get another payout in 2026. So about 5 years after the initial payout. And then in the meantime, back in 2019, people started asking me to help them manage their brands on Amazon, which led to Profitable Pineapple Ads. We are an ads agency right now. We're actually shifting the whole model of the business, and we're turning it more into a partnership and education platform. And so we're teaching people our SOP, and these are brands that are doing anywhere from 6 figures to 7 figures. We teach them our advertising SOP, and as they start to scale their company, if they want to work with us, they now have to give us equity into their brand and on top of the fee. So we want to become partners now. We're still an agency until the end of the year. And at the time of this recording, it will be the end of 2024. And so 2025, we're going to start this partnership equity play where if you want to work with us, it's a partnership. Because unfortunately, and if you guys have ever been in the agency world, we've taken brands from 100,000 to 500,000 all the way up. Our biggest brand was doing 15 million, and they leave us because we get too expensive. And so it's just like, but why would you I don't understand the opportunity shift there just to save a little money when you're doing 15 million when this company helps you. But unfortunately that's happened, and it's happened like 5 times now. And so it's very sad to take somebody up to multi 8 figures and then they leave you because you get too expensive. So we're shifting our whole model. And then we also have our inventory management software that came out of a need from our iLove business. We couldn't manage inventory effectively. We hired somebody to do it for us. He built this program for it back in 2018. And then we just released it to the public back in June. So that is my last 10 years of my life summed up in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, and a couple of things that really stand out there for me, and especially for our listeners who are building brands is kind of, looking at the brands that you built and thinking about not only solving that problem through a product, which obviously is a big part of, what we're doing, selling brands that are selling products on Amazon, but also serving customers really and helping them solve a problem even through education. So, helping them solve dry eyes with something that might be as simple as changing their diet, or changing some of the other things that they use, realizing that, if they fix it through that problem or through that solution, they may not even be buying your product, but because there's so much value in that it really just helped move your brand forward, I think to me really stands out compared to, I think, how a lot of some people think about building a brand versus actually serving their customer base.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. Like we just had a conversation about that, just internally, and it was a short one, with our team. But we've had a goal for this year of doubling last year's revenue, and I actually kind of had a little bit of a shift in my perspective on that. That just it's not a shift in terms of how I think about our business, but it was a shift in terms of what the goal setting was, and it was instead of thinking about let's double our annual revenue. Let's think about let's double the number of people that we serve this year, and looking at it from that framework that we're actually helping somebody trying to solve a problem. And what I like about what you were saying, Travis, is that everything that you've done, and I think ultimately for business this is the way it ought to be, but everything that you've done is always about solving a problem, right? If you're not solving a problem, then you're not accomplishing anything useful, then it's all about marketing and it's really not about anything else. And everything that you mentioned was solving a problem for someone, even in the case of, some of the things that you created for your own business, like the inventory software, that was solving a problem. And then of course the realization becomes, well, if we solve that problem for us, there's probably a whole bunch of other Amazon sellers that have the exact same problem. Why don't we allow them to take advantage of that, solution as well? And it's a win-win for everybody. So.
Yeah, exactly. And you said something key there. When you focus on a problem, you're a true entrepreneur, because that's what entrepreneurs are, is they're problem solvers. They're not opportunists. And a lot of what happened with like Amazing Selling Machine, where it was teaching, and every course out there now is teaching you how to find products and release them. You're taking advantage of an opportunity. You're not solving a real problem. And so if you're scouring Amazon for hours looking for that opportunity that's there, then that's what it is. And it will be gone. It's an opportunity. Live it up for 12 to 18 months, but it will be gone in 12 to 18 months. But when you focus on solving a real problem, your brand isn't going to go away overnight. It's going to stay for a long time because people will support you for you. We sold a product for $30 when our competitor was $6. We also sold a product for $20 when our competitor was $300, but we had other people come into the market at $10. So they cut us in half. Our sales were not affected because we built this brand and we built this loyalty of customers that followed us to follow us, and they would support us because we were there for them as well.
One of the things that I love about what you've said so far is that you chose a person, and that person was the person that has dry eyes. Now, that person that has dry eyes might buy products from all different categories, but when you focus on that person and you find a problem that that person has, in my opinion, that's a much better way to look at this business opportunity. So like when students come through, and I've had so many conversations with them, and they're just looking at black box and helium 10, and they have all these different filters that they're searching for, and breaking them of that, and because of all the YouTube videos that they've watched. And instead of search for a product, why don't you first think of a person, whether that person is someone that you know, whether it's you. All the categories that I sell products in, I am that person. And so it's easier for me to be able to speak that language and understand the problems that I can solve with a product. So what I love about how you've approached everything that you've said so far and the brands that you've built is finding a person and solving a problem or enhancing the life of that person with physical products, in my opinion, is the better way to look at this business, as opposed to finding a product amongst the sea of a whole bunch of other people that are just selling products.
I actually don't know how to do product research.
Yeah, you've made a lot of money without having to know that. So,
I use helium 10 every single day. I have no idea how to use black box, because it's just, in my opinion, and how we teach people to think about this business, that is the last way that I would try to find a product, is just by using a black box and putting in a whole bunch of filters. Because I mean, like you said, like that you might find a flash in a pan and it might do well for a month or two, but you're going to have a lot of Chinese competitors, mostly manufacturers, that are selling that same product, and then you're going to be in a race to the bottom. But when you have a person and you're solving a problem for a person with good products, that person will look past those Chinese competitors, and they'll even pay a premium for your product because they know, like, and trust you. You're speaking to them with all of your content and all of your products, and they feel like they're a part of something bigger than just buying a product on Amazon. And I've proven it in my categories. Like, I can sell the same thing that Chinese manufacturers are selling, but because they come from my audience and they know who I am and they know that we're building a brand for them, they're fine paying a couple of extra bucks for a product because they know that we're going to take care of them.
Yeah, and you can even differentiate the product just slightly as well, and just a slight tweak. So an example of this is warm compresses for your eyes. These are warm compresses you throw in the microwave, you heat them up, you put them on your eyes. They help melt the oil in your eyelids to help get the oil out onto your eye so you have less dry eye. However, everybody has the same mask. All we did is we took that mask and we added a nice cover to it. That was it. So you could take the cover off and wash it and then put it back on. That little differentiation allowed us to charge double what everybody else was, and we still sold 100 to 200 of those per day. Not the top of the category, but still sold quite a few.
Well, one of the other things that you talked about that I think a lot of brands are like, they understand it in concept, but maybe kind of do struggle in execution is, the education and content piece of it. I feel like they kind of fall into two common traps. One is that, hey, I'm just going to put something in the chat GPT on top 5 tips for dry eyes. And it, puts out the most generic information possible that you could find in a 2-second Google search that isn't necessarily helpful. Or they go the other direction where they might be an expert on the topic. And so they feel like they need to write, a 1,000-page dissertation on it with every answer anybody could ever want about that topic. So when you think about content and really engaging that audience, how do you think about that? And like, what does your process look like for useful content to keep the audience engaged?
Yeah, this is a great question because I am obsessed with content, and that's like how I've built all my businesses is through content. However, I didn't have ChatGPT back in the day, and we didn't have short form video, which are two huge advantages today. So what we used to do back when we started this in 2017 is when we started the Dry Eye brand. we just started going live in a community on Facebook in a group, and absolutely nobody showed up. And all we did is we went live answering questions. Well, we made up the questions at the beginning just because you look up like most frequently asked questions around dry eye, and we just answered them like we would a patient sitting across in our chair. And that's all we did. And we did that every single week for an hour, every single week. Nobody showed up for 6 months. Finally, people started showing up. We were cross promoting those videos onto like YouTube as well. But this is all long form. There were no softwares to stream across all the platforms at once. There was none of that. So it was literally like go live on Facebook, download it, and then upload it to YouTube. And we did that for thousands and thousands of videos. And what happened eventually after 6 to 12 months is we started gaining traction on all our videos. And then therefore, we now have thousands of videos and we start gaining followers. And the Facebook group now is around 25,000 people. And our YouTube subscribers were around 55,000 when we sold. We actually had to shut that down. But on top of that, we always discuss something at the beginning of every episode and then go into Q&A. And the thing that we talked about at the beginning, we'd write a blog post about. So the blog post would be our talking notes because it'd be my wife and I doing this dialogue together. And we wrote those because we were the doctors. And we wrote every single blog forever. And then we started hiring people, but then that was crap too because they didn't know what they were talking about. So it was hard to hire that out. But there's big main problems that your business should solve. And when you just focus around those big main problems, you can focus your content around just a few great pieces around that. So Alex Hormozy talks about it all the time. Like we take 1 day to come out with a product and then 10 years to market the product. But if we switch that around and spent 10 years on the actual product, you wouldn't have to market it at all because it would be so good. And so when you're creating your content plan, there's a problem that your product solves. And when you focus on that problem and make a piece of content that is so good, people will share it. People will share your videos, they'll share your blog posts, they'll share everything about it because it's that good of a piece. And you can test it very easily. So what I like to do is I will write a blog article. I just did one this morning. It was about Amazon inventory bundles. I think that was correct. Amazon inventory bundles. Because a lot of sellers have trouble with managing inventory of their Amazon bundles because you have 5 SKUs in one bundle and then you have to track each SKU separately. And so that's one thing that we did with our software is we made that functionality where you can create these bundles to then track each individual SKU that you need to order to keep the bundles in stock and to keep you in stock. And so we made this beautifully written blog post this morning. And I used a combination now of ChatGPT, but my own knowledge. And so I outlined it myself. I said, this is what I want for point number 1, 2, 3. And then I want you to wrap it all up following this format into selling our inventory management software. So the goal of the content is to provide so much value that people will want to share it. But then at the end, it's an advertorial to then get them to go buy your product. So another example of this in the Amazon space would be, we'll talk about dry eyes. So blepharitis is an eyelid inflammation. A lot of people have it, and it gets 300,000 searches a month on Google. We made an amazing blepharitis blog. It was like the 5 best ways to handle blepharitis naturally. Point number 1 is clean your eyelids. This is how we clean our eyelids. Point number 2 is make sure you remove all your makeup. This is how we remove our makeup. And we wrote this article, and then we just started driving tons of Google Ads traffic to it. And when you focus on a problem versus a product-based keyword, your cost per click will be incredibly low. I'm talking like under 10 cents low. Whereas when you focus on a product-based keyword, you're competing with everybody else out there. So your cost is going to be more like $1 to $5 per click. So we drive all this traffic to our blog. We pixel them. So then we have them in a remarketing campaign. But then on that blog, we put Amazon attribution links to then go over to buy on Amazon. Now, that brings me to another complaining point of being an old man, is we had to use Amazon Associates links back in the day that only paid 3%, and now we get Amazon attribution links that pay 10%. And so we're actually creating blogs for clients now that we're getting paid to run because we're spending $60 we're
Because the
making
clicks are so cheap.
$600, and then the credit from the attribution is 10%. So it's going back up. It's a credit to your Google Ads. And so if you're making more in attribution than you are spending in Google Ads, you're actually getting paid to run those ads. So we're starting to see that now too, which is amazing. And so this strategy that I just kind of briefly went over is blowing up some of our clients because we're now getting paid 10% to do these ads from Amazon, which is then negating the Google Ads itself. So I hope that all made sense. That's like an entire SOP that I just said in 5 minutes, but
Dude, honestly, that's amazing, man. Like, I mean, that's gold right there. If we
Yeah.
only had that little section of this podcast, it's well worth everybody listening to. You know, something else that I kind of want to touch on that you were talking about was, you know, you were talking about doing those Facebook Live videos, and that you were recording forever. You know, like it just went on for like 6 months and nobody was listening, and or showing up. And I think the interesting thing there is that, you know, you indicated that once people did start showing up, then it became clear that the content was useful, obviously, because people started subscribing, more people started showing up, they started sharing the content and whatnot. And what I think a lot of people don't really take enough account of is, you know, especially on like a YouTube account, right? So you're posting all of these videos to YouTube and they're just sitting there initially, like there's nobody really watching them. But the fact that all of that content exists and is good content, as soon as you actually start getting people who are subscribing to your channel and starting to pay attention, then like you said, all of that previous content now becomes food for that subscriber base to listen to share, to, you know, whatever. And all of a sudden it has a much better foundation on which to kind of exponentially grow, you know, very quickly. But you had to record a lot of content over a long period of time, getting nothing out of it, you know, seemingly in the beginning for that to be true. And so I think it's one of those things where it's like, just don't give up on it. You know, like if you're producing good content and it's solving a problem, eventually, you know, it's going to take off and it's going to be useful. It's just a question of when. You don't know what that time horizon is, but when it comes, you know, it's going to be a benefit.
yeah. And
Well, and that was my question too. And hearing that was, I mean, obviously you're a busy guy. So when you were thinking about that and just getting started, did you just commit yourself to, hey, we're going to do this for 6 months to, you know, 6 to 12 months to see what's going to happen? Or was there some sort of kind of lead metric that you were looking at to say, hey, I know that this is eventually going to build up enough momentum?
it's a great question. And I'm going to try to, my brain's going every which way right now. So I'm going to try to summarize this all up into one like little brief point here. There's a lot to that. So we're sold in this community that we can build $1 million business in 12 months and turn around and sell it in no time. But that is not appealing to me because I don't believe in building something just to sell it. The only reason we sold our business is because it was a strategic sale to get our product into the hands of more people, because that solved the why and the mission of what we were trying to build. In this realm of like get rich quick, sell your business for a lot of money and get out, I don't believe in that. So whenever I commit to doing something, I commit at least 12 months and if not 3 years, because I want to know what this is going to look like in 3 years from now. So if I started doing, so in November 12th of last year, I committed to doing 2 shorts per day across all my social media channels. It's 90 videos a week. So I do 2 shorts a day across 6 channels, 7 days a week. And then I do 1 long form on Monday. And that goes across all the channels as well. I committed on November 12th to do that. And not a lot has happened since then because it's only been 4 to 5 months at the time of this recording. But I know, because I've seen it from so many different people that are doing it, that in 12 months from that November 12th date, so we're still quite a few ways away, I know it's going to completely change my business. It's going to completely change the game plan. It's going to change everything for me in my life as well as a result of that. And so whenever you're thinking about doing anything like this, you have to focus on long term. What am I trying to do? What is my why? How long am I going to commit to this? We knew dry eye was the future, and we had a message that we needed to spread. And that message was pharmaceutical companies suck. They just want your money. They don't work. And what we teach does work. We actually put our natural system, which was drink a green smoothie in the morning for breakfast, drink 16 ounces of water before every meal, sleep better by turning your phone off an hour before bed, stress less by writing 3 gratitudes a night. That was it. That was the whole system. Very simple to do. It tested better for dry eye treatment than any prescription medication out there. We did official dry eye studies on this. And that was the message we needed to get out to the world. And so we knew we would not stop until we hit 1 million dry eye sufferers. So by the time we sold our company, we had a following of about 200,000 people. We hadn't quite got to that million, but the buyer was an eye care company. They were in 6,000 doctors' offices. We were in 50. And so they did no direct to consumer, and they had 9 brands. So we took over their whole direct to consumer side. They took over our wholesale side. And so it was a win-win situation where we could spread the message of our message, number one, but spread the product as well, number two. So when you're thinking about content, this is bringing it back. When you're thinking about content, I learned back in the SEO days at Google, when I used to do like more SEO work, you're in a sandbox for about 6 months. Whenever you release a new website, it's going to be in a sandbox of Google. That sandbox is just essentially Google telling you, I'm not going to rank you for shit until you prove to me that you're actually going to do stuff and you're actually going to do the work. And so if you come out with one blog article and expect it to rank, you're not going to show up anywhere. Same thing with video content. If you put out one video and you're like, well, this sucked, I guess I'm not going to get followers, so I'm going to quit, then all the algorithms are the same. YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, they want to see you produce consistent content for 4 to 6 to 12 months before they're going to show you. And so I know that because I've seen my friends blow up. And so I've seen it. It's happened to me, but it was all from long form video. But I know it will happen again. And so I'm committing. November 12th, 2 shorts a day for an entire year. And that's what I know. So one more quick example and story. I actually have a phone call after this podcast and we're buying a business. And this is like, I think we're probably a week away from buying it. Game plan, 2 short form videos a day around the problem our product solves, which is acid reflux. So the same demographic that we were going after before. We're going to come out with blogs around the problem that our product solves around acid reflux. And we're going to serve that person. This brand that we're buying has 7 different supplements. We're discontinuing all of them except for the acid reflux one. And we're going to focus all our efforts on that. And everything is going to be around talking to that person. And then our next product that we come out with is going to be around acid reflux. And so it's one of those things that, and we're committing to that strategy for 12 months, by the way, at least to see results. So whenever all this being said, it's out there, the proof is out there. If you're going to start content, which is the best thing you can do to grow a brand right now, is short form video content, commit to 12 months, period. 2 videos a day is best. 1 video a day, if that's all you can handle, that's fine. But commit to it for 12 months. You guys are doing this podcast. I'm sure it wasn't like easy breezy. Okay, and then final point. Final point on this. Whenever somebody discovers you for the first time, they don't discover your first video. But if it's so good it moves them and creates an emotion in them and it evokes an emotion in them, guess what they do? They go back and watch every single thing that you've put out. They go back and listen to everything you put out. Think about a TV show where you've come in on season 5, you watch one episode, you're like, wow, that was really good. So then you go back, start it over at season 1 and watch the whole thing again. That is what you have to think about, is create series, create engagement, create emotion to get people to follow you and stick with it long enough for people to follow you and find you.
Yeah, I think that's
brother. Amen.
I was going to say, I love that framework of thinking about, okay, well, first of all, how valuable content is. And when you pick kind of that channel of committing to it for 12 months, because that is a pretty big commitment. And I mean, I think everybody's been guilty of it before, or at least I have, where you put out, 3 to 5 pieces of content, whether it was a blog post or video or whatever, and you don't see anything happening. and nobody reads it and you kind of give up. And so I think having more of that long-term thought process behind it of, hey, I'm going to do this for the next 12 months because I know that it's going to transform my business. I mean, you're proof that that process works.
And he's proof that that process works because he watched his friends do it and knows that it works. So like, that's the beauty of this whole thing, this whole cyclical cycle, is that he's seen it happen. And now he knows that the 12 months that he's committed to this isn't going to be in vain. And that's his motivation to keep going. The other thing that I loved about what you said, and it's so true, is you have to have your why in mind, because if your why isn't at the forefront of everything that you do, it's a lot easier to give up when your why isn't bigger than any obstacles that you're going to face. And I mean, that's true in a physical product brand. And if you don't have a why for your physical product brand, I mean, the very first time you try to contact Seller Central support and you get nowhere, I mean, that's going to be an easy reason for you to give up, because there's a lot of roadblocks. As we all know, as entrepreneurs on Amazon, there's roadblocks every step of the way. And if your why isn't bigger than the roadblocks that you're going to face, you're not going to outlast the competitors. And that's true in everything that we do. Our podcast is the same way. We just did an episode of, the behind the scenes of what it was like to create this podcast. I mean, the three of us have been having these conversations for 2 years now, and hitting the record button was revolutionary for all of us. And we know that, our podcast isn't going to do what we want it to do in the first month. We have to be committed to do it for so long. And I love your statement of the why has to be bigger, and that it's so true.
Well, and I think also, I think it's important to point out that the why can't be money, right? Like if the why is just money, then when you're not seeing the money come in because you're doing this content or whatever it is over and over and over again and not seeing that money come in, if that's the why, then you're going to quit. If on the other hand, the why is, I want to help people with XYZ, then even if you get one viewer or two viewers or three, like, you're still actually accomplishing the why. Like if you're solving a difficult problem, something that really does cause people grief, then at least if your why is to solve the problem, then even with very small audience, you're actually impacting in some positive way. But if the money is the thing, money's never going to come with one or two or three viewers, like that's not going to happen. So, if the why is something other than that, that it really is solving a problem and helping somebody's life, improve, it only takes one viewer for that. Like that person walks away from that video and figures out that these are the things that I could do to fix my dry eye, or this is the SOP that I could use to, generate more traffic, to my listing by, say, producing these, blog posts and advertising them with Google that's on a problem-based, key phrase. Like those kind of things help people. And even if only one person watches this podcast, well, that one person is going to get some significant value out of it. So if that's the why, then you're good.
I'll make a quick comment on that.
So Travis, for those brands out there, yeah, go ahead.
So quick comment on that. The very first time I ever spoke on stage, and Mike, you've seen me speak on stage before. The very first time I've ever done it, 2 people were in the audience and one fell asleep. So the funny thing is, like, we look at all these viewer counts and downloads and everything, and like Mike just said, one person, that's all it takes to get that emotional connection. Like our lifetime value of our customer in our agency now is $40,000, or excuse me, $20,000. It's $20,000. That's a big difference, but that's our lifetime value. And so like, it just takes that one person to completely change something for you, because you have to show up all the time. But now that I've been doing it for the 4 months, and I've done long form longer than that, but we are getting 45,000 views a week right now. And our goal is to hit 170,000 views a week by the end of the year. And just think about that. You're in an auditorium of 45,000 people watching you. And so that is massive for your brand.
I can give you a real world example, Travis, of your content being shared against a lot of people. And I don't know how long it took you, but you have that free Amazon advertising masterclass that I don't know if you've redone it. I think that you might have, since I found it 4 years ago now. I've probably pointed 4 dozen students to that free Amazon masterclass that you created way back, however long it was. And who knows how many of them have forwarded that to other sellers that they've known. So like that one piece of content, I think it was like 6 or 7 YouTube videos that you did that you've arranged into a masterclass, has been shared with at least 4 dozen people that I know of, because you created good content. It made sense. I was able to take action steps right after I watched a video, and I've shared it with, you know, a whole bunch of people because of that, who I know have also shared it with a whole bunch of people. So there's a real world example of your content being shared because it was good content. It solves a problem. It speaks to a person.
Yeah, so we just updated that in 2024, and that video, we actually did it as, we have broken it down into videos, but this is a YouTube Studio hack right now. We made a 3-hour version of it and uploaded it to YouTube, and it's getting crazy views now because people are sitting on that video for 2 hours at a time. The average watch time for that video is 40 minutes, and so people are sitting on it. YouTube is then taking it and suggesting it to other people that are watching Amazon PPC related videos. And so it's getting really juiced by the algorithm because it's so long, and YouTube loves that. So wanted to say that just for a little YouTube hack. But Matt, also thank you for sharing that. But we have a brand new version of it in 2024.
I can't wait to watch
Awesome.
it. I'll be part of that 40 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've talked a lot about, you know, different platforms, which I think are great for visibility. You know, one of the other notes that you had in here was talking about building an email list. What suggestions do you have for brands that are like, okay, I'm on board with doing this content, or maybe I'm already doing it already? How do I transition that into an email list, which, you know, is powerful in the sense of if YouTube decides tomorrow that they don't like you or the algorithm changes to something else, you know, there's less control there. But if you have an email list, I mean, those are people that have raised their hand and said, hey, I'm willing to give my email address so you can send me a message, and you can take that, you know, essentially anywhere. And you have a lot more ownership of that list versus a YouTube audience or some other social media platform.
I love email. Email is just one of those things that it should be at the forefront of your mind as a brand owner, to figure out how to get somebody's email address. And the reason that is because, like you just said, John, it's something that you own. It is a physical asset of your brand. It increases your multiple from a 2 to 3x if you're an Amazon seller to a 3 to 6x if you're a brand owner. And so it's a big difference in your multiple. It's hard and people don't like it. So people that got into this Amazon selling game liked it because it's an easy opportunity. However, when you start to build that brand, it gets a little harder. So they go back to just selling on Amazon. There's not a right or wrong answer, but understand that you're in that opportunity space like we talked about, and it will go away eventually unless you build a real brand. And that's where email list comes in. Now, when you're focusing on email, it makes me so mad how people get this so wrong. And they say stuff like, get 10% off, put your email address in, or here's your extended warranty. Sorry if you guys use the extended warranty. Here's your extended warranty. Nobody cares about that. You have to create curiosity. You have to make them want something so bad that they're giving you their email address. That is nothing to you because you're a marketer, but to them, it's personal. It's like them giving you their address. It's that personal for them. And so what you have to do is you have to think about the problem that your product solves or the problem that your business solves and focus around that. So I'll give an example. My free Amazon PPC masterclass, shameless plug, profitablepineapple.com, you can get it there. But the page for the free Amazon PPC masterclass has, just this past week, we had a 50% opt-in rate. Good opt-in rates anywhere from 1 to 5%-ish. And if you get up in the 30s, that's really great. And then last week we had 50%. It usually hovers around 42%. It's because it's when your targeting is matching up with the problem. So if your targeting is exactly where it needs to be, focusing on the problem that your product solves, and you're getting people over to a landing page that's like, yes, I do want that free Amazon PPC masterclass because I'm struggling with PPC, which about 99% of sellers are. So it's a no-brainer for them because it's free. And Matt can attest to it. It is better than any paid courses out there we have a paid version of the course that just introduces a lot of software automation to it. And so it's very manual, but it's great for if you're just getting started out. And then if you're ready to upgrade to the software side, where you're starting to use automations, you have to know how to use automations for them to work. That's why most people will try software and they're like, this sucks, it doesn't work. It's because they don't know how to use the software and use the automation. But once you know how to use the automation, it works. Let's go back to a brand on Amazon. You want to try to bring curiosity to the conversation to get them to opt in. So if I have people on my acid reflux blog, we haven't started doing this yet, but I'm going to have a pop-up that says the 5 mistakes you're making with acid reflux. People are going, if they're struggling with acid reflux, if they're in that pain right now, they're going to be like, well, what mistakes am I making? And they're going to put their email address in to find that out. Or for the dry eye thing, 5 mistakes you're making with dry eye. Let's switch it completely to wealth management. 5 mistakes you're making with your money. 5 mistakes that are keeping you poor. Those are all things that, like, you as a human, you're just like, well, why am I staying poor? What mistakes am I making? And so you want to try to evoke this curiosity and create this curiosity hook that makes them want to put their email address in. And then once you get their email address in, you can market them with everything else. So our free Amazon PPC Masterclass is there. You can take it and you can run with it and do your own thing with it. That's fine. If you're ready to use automation, that's where we call it the 10X linchpin. That's where we bring in a group of students. We bring in 10 to 15 students at a time every 2 months, and we train them on the software. We actually do the work for them and then teach them how to use it. And then they're off on their own. And then we have our agency, which is, so that's at $1,000 a month. And then our agency is $5,000 a month to start with us. And we're moving that into an equity model. And then the top tier is equity. And so we have this value ladder that we move them up. And you need to think about how you can do that with your brand as well. So you get them in with the curiosity hook, and then you give them your story, and then you try to sell them in the end. So what I like to do with my emails is I like to get replies instead of clicks. And so a lot of my emails will say reply back for XYZ, or reply back to let me know this, because that makes you safer in the eyes of Google, Outlook, Apple's email and everything. So get reply backs instead of clicks. So if you're offering them something, hey, reply back with your address and I'll send this to you. Reply back and I'll get it sent over to you right away, or anything like that. So try to get reply backs for things.
Okay. And then, so I think the second half of it, and you addressed it a little bit, but once you have that email, however you're building your email list, let's say you've got a little bit of traction there, for Amazon sellers that want to expand and become a brand like you talked about, from your perspective, or what advice do you have for them to, once they've got a few emails, to continue to engage that audience on a regular basis? And what does that kind of, rhythm look like?
Yeah. So we usually have like a welcome series where the first email is all about giving them what they opted in for, but then we start our story a little bit. And then after that story, we then continue the story on the second and third email, and we'll kind of let them know how we came about creating what we created and why we do what we do. Then that fourth email is going to be like, these can have like epiphany moments in it. They can have, it's pretty much, if you guys have read the .com Secrets book, that's like this storyboarding of a hero's journey of, I'm struggling with this, I had this epiphany bridge, and then here's the outcome that came about from it. And that's like a typical copywriting journey. And you want to do that with your email sequence and keep them tied in to get them to read the next thing. And then after that, you can talk about your products a little bit more. So you can ask for the sale after you've earned their trust because they've tied into your story. I like to also talk about where I learned, what I learned, how I came up with the products, things like that. And then after the welcome sequence, we then go into a little bit of a drip sequence that's all about the blogs. So they came for a problem, the 5 mistakes that you're making with dry eye. So we drip to them blogs. What is dry eye? 5 best treatments for dry eye. Are dry eye drops good for you? And you can find these questions anywhere. You can find them on like Ask the Public or Answer the Public, whatever it's called, Ask Jeeves. I think that's still around. I don't even know. But we use Answer the Public, and you just get questions that are commonly asked around the problem that you solve. And you can drip content out to them that they're going to be interested in reading, because they initially opted into that curiosity hook. And then what else we do is dedicate 1 day, 1 hour to write an email to your list about your life, just in general about your life. So this week, we write an email every day. I write usually 1 email a week, and then I have a ghostwriter that writes for me the rest of the time. I wrote 3 emails this week. One was updating everybody on our content our social media and how it's growing. So we grew by 1,600 people in the month of February across email and social media. And so we talked about how we did that and how our numbers grew and what's working, what's not. The second one I did is I'm doing income reports monthly for our inventory management software. We are burning through cash right now. We're at negative 31,000 a month. It's fantastic. And I just go over like the challenges of that and what we're doing to correct it. Because people want to see that like businesses aren't perfect. Like I am choosing to burn cash in the inventory management software and I'm subsidizing it with my ads agency because I believe in the why, the long-term vision of that software. And it's going to change lives, and it does change lives. We've got probably close to 50 clients on it now, and the feedback is amazing. It's phenomenal. And then I wrote another email all around that we filled up our 10X linchpin. So we just enrolled, this is week 1. I just wrote an email letting people know that we filled it up. So just letting people know what's going on with the business, letting people know what's going on with your life. People are interested as long as you make it interesting. And so as long as you're helping them get to their goal and always thinking top of mind of what is their ultimate goal, getting rid of dry eye, getting rid of unprofitable ads, getting rid of acid reflux, and having that in the forefront of everything that you're writing. And so make sure you keep that in mind. So don't be afraid to write that 1 email a week, and that 1 email a week can turn into a TikTok video, and you can just repurpose that content. So when I write my emails, I'll actually make a video of the same thing I wrote, and then I get them to go from the email over to the video if they want to watch a video version of it. It's a lot, but keep it simple.
This podcast episode, actually, you being on this podcast episode as a guest actually came from one of those personal emails that you sent talking about just what was going on in your life. I don't know if you remember that, but it was the email that you sent about your son's surgery that he had. Actually, it prompted me to respond to it. And here we are on this podcast episode, which that email that you wrote, someone's going to hear you on this podcast, and that's going to turn into someone going to your website, Profitable Pineapple, and then someone's going to find your content. And there you have it. The 1 email that you sent that sold a personal story that connected with someone turned into who knows how much more after that. So
you never know the influence that your audience will have. And so you never know the influence that they are building. You never know the influence that they have. So you guys have built this podcast. Matt's been on my list, and now we've just, this came about, like you just said, Matt. I had somebody on my list in dry eye that was, she owned a $100 million food company. And she's like, hey, I just want to get on the call with you and just talk. And so like, I was like, yes. And literally we talked for like 3 hours. We addressed all her dry eye issues. And then she gave me tons of business advice. And I was like, this is fantastic. And you just don't know the influence that's in following you because you don't know every single one of your customers.
Yeah.
So you've brought up a couple of, I think, really good kind of foundational principles talking about, really solving problems for customers. And then also a little bit of the story around this inventory management software that you're working on. And one of the notes I have in here, and it's the only thing that's in all caps, which is running out of stock as being one of the biggest issues or biggest problems for brands. Talk to me a little bit about like what drove you to start this software and what problem you're working. I mean, I think on the surface of it, it's pretty obvious of like, hey, you don't want to run out of stock, but why is this such a big problem that you want to solve for brands?
This actually goes back to everything we've talked about in this episode. We've talked about algorithms a little bit. And when you understand the algorithm and what the algorithm wants, then you can win every single time. Amazon wants 2 things. They want a high converting product that sells a shit ton. That's it. So if you think about everything in regards to how can I get my product to sell more, so Amazon shows me more. Because if you have a higher sales velocity and you have a higher conversion rate, Amazon is going to move you up in the organic ranking. So with inventory and the importance of never running out of stock, it's one side of that algorithm, sales velocity. If you tank your sales velocity, you tank your organic rank, and you may never recover again, or you'll lose out on potentially millions. So quick story about this. When we sold our company, they didn't want to use our inventory management anymore, which is Profitable Pineapple Express. And it wasn't called that then, it was just used internally. And I was like, we've got our inventory systems pretty dialed in, so I don't know if I want you guys to touch them because you guys don't understand Amazon as much. They said, oh, we've got better inventory management systems. We use NetSuite. And I was like, whatever. You guys take it over. And I started noticing like we were dwindling down more. And they're like, we don't want to pay storage fees. I was like, I don't want you to run out of stock, because if you run out of stock, that's worse than paying storage fees. Right. And if we're cycling through the inventory turn fast enough, we don't pay storage fees. They didn't listen to me. We stocked out of 4 of our 5 bestsellers. 4 out of our 5 bestsellers. These are products that sold 100 to 200 units a day. And it costs us directly $250,000 while we were stocked out. However, one of the products never recovered. We could never get it back up to that 100 to 200 sales a day. And it got stuck at 30 to 50 sales a day. And so that one mistake of stocking out cost us millions of dollars as a result, because this is a $30 product selling 100 to 200 a day down to 30 to 50 sales a day. We can never get
We're in the same boat
again.
We had the same product. We have a hero product that, it still sells well, but it doesn't sell nearly as well as it used to. And that's exactly the problem that we ran into. Now, it realistically was unavoidable. We couldn't really have fixed it. It basically was COVID related. So we ended up in a situation that we couldn't have predicted that it was going to happen that way. And so we had ordered a massive amount of inventory to get ready for, because we're seasonal. We sell pool cleaning tools. So we had everything lined up for the season. We had all of our containers lined up. We knew exactly when they were going to ship. All the POs were set. And then COVID hit, and we couldn't get them produced because, of course, nobody could be in the factories producing. And so then all of our inventory got backed up. So and then everybody was home. So what happened was, in the pool space, everybody was home. A bunch of people started putting in pools. People were using their pools more because they can't go anywhere. So we were selling through inventory like crazy on this product, but we couldn't get any more. We raised the price. We did all sorts of things to try to slow it down. We just couldn't slow it enough. So then we ran out of stock. We were literally out of stock for a month before we could get anything else in. And then unfortunately, everything came, like we had all these POs lined up. So then we had, 30,000 units showed up, right? But that product, we have never gotten back to the ranking that we had. And there's probably all sorts of other variables that have come into play that are keeping us from being able to get back. But ultimately, the beginning of it was the stock out. So you cannot afford it. If you can avoid a stock out, you have to. You absolutely have to.
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting, because such a good point for a lot of sellers out there, because I feel like, it's been said before where they're like, well, if I go out of stock, well, then I just have to put my product back in stock and then it'll be right back where it was. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it definitely doesn't. So as we kind of wrap up here, we've covered a lot, and you've given, some great advice for brands out there, Travis. If there was, kind of one action item that you'd have for brands, or is there kind of one action item, I guess, that you'd have for brands based on our conversation today?
I'll cheat and give you 2. 20% of your inputs are creating 80% of your results. And so figure out what that 20% is and focus only on that. And it's probably not what you're doing every single day. So once you start focusing on the 20% that produces 80% of the results, and it's probably something that you actually enjoy doing, your business will take off more than it ever has. So me, as the CEO of my agency and the inventory management software, my 20% is getting on shows like this. It's amplifying the message, getting the word out, getting up on stage, doing that. That's going to get our message out there, get more followers, get more people on the inventory management software, get more people into my ecosystem, take my free Amazon PPC masterclass. So that is my 20%. So I'm constantly looking to get on shows like this. So what is your 20%? Figure it out in your brand. And it kind of leads into number two, which is get away from the numbers of your business and focus on the results that you're driving for people. Because if you drive results, everything else will take care of itself. If you have such a good product that it brings the result that the person is looking for, people will share it like crazy. And I will go into a personal one right now. I am losing my hair. And 2 months ago, I got to the point where I was like, I need to find something. And I looked at all the products on the market. And the one I ended up going with, I went with because of the story around it. The guy that's the founder and he's the CEO of the company, his story was captivating and it was interesting. And I was like, it was marketed completely different than everybody else. Everybody else was focused around results. He was focused around the story. And the results spoke for themselves. Everybody has the before and after photos, so I wasn't worried about that. His story sold me, so I bought it. And 2 months later, we just did like our 2 month photo. Like this has been completely filled in almost after 2 months. That's very rare that it happens that fast. And so I will tell everybody about his product. I am no affiliate for it. I will tell everybody about the product because he drove results that he promised and he focused on those results and he got his marketing out there with a story. So, with all that being said, focus on the results of your customer and everything else will take care of itself.
Great pieces of advice for brands. You've mentioned them a little bit, kind of the different projects that you're working on currently. But for folks that are interested in learning more about those and, just kind of keeping up with what you're working on, where are the best places for them to connect with you?
So on all the socials, I'm Dr. Travis Zigler. So you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Those are all there. Just search my name, Travis Zigler, and you should be able to find me. Look for a pineapple. That's the easiest way to find me. If you want our free Amazon PPC masterclass, that's at profitablepineapple.com. And then our inventory management, we do have a $1 30-day trial for you to try it out. And that's at profitablepineappleexpress.com. So free Amazon PPC masterclass, profitablepineapple.com, inventory, Profitable Pineapple Express. We didn't think about these things when we made the URLs. We just made them for fun.
Well, we'll make sure it's down in the show notes. So anybody who's listening to these that, want an easy reference, we'll make sure to put those links in the show notes. So they're only a click away. All right. Well, Travis, thank you so much again for being on the podcast and sharing all the different kind of strategies and tactics that you have today.
Yeah, John, Mike, Matt, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it. And if I can be any service to you guys, let me know.
Great.
All right, Mike. So how do we want to do this, the intro piece of it?
I have to get going. I have another meeting. Do you guys care if I jump off?
Oh, yep.
That's all good.
All right,
you can jump
totally
off.
fine. Do ask that you keep the browser open for a couple of minutes just to make sure everything uploads.
Yep.
Other than that, thank you so much for
appreciate
being
y'all.
on the podcast.
Mike.
Yep. So yeah, basically, I just know that the podcast that I was on, essentially, once we had gotten through it, my guess is he probably had been taking notes throughout for the things that he wanted to touch on for the intro. And so, maybe we do it, maybe we don't this time. But when it was done, he left a little break, and then he just said, "Hey, I want to record an intro." So I stayed on, and he was like, "Hey." And I can't even remember exactly how he put it, but essentially he was just trying to give that hook. So maybe what we need to do, maybe we don't do it today. Maybe we should have a little template, for what that intro looks like.
Yeah.
And then during the interview, you just kind of, are thinking, okay, I'm going to need that intro. What are the notes that I want to put in there that I can use as hooks, to make sure that somebody wants to listen? And maybe that's the best way to do it.
Okay. Yeah. Let's try that for the next one.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, man.
Appreciate it.
Cool. We'll talk to you later.